What's the most blatant act of racism you have witnessed in person? Back in the 80s, when I was still in school, someone in our class apparently gave up on education and decided to be an edgelord instead. In one maths class he got the ethnically Indian teacher's attention by standing up and shouting, "Oh you stupid Paki." I have no idea what the thought processes behind that decision were, but he was kicked out of school some time later. According to witnesses, he was crying like a little bee when he got the news. Serves him right. He doesn't want education and he jetted it. I was driving out of my gated community and a lady stepped off the curb and in front of my car yelling at the top of her lungs. She comes to the driver's side and is like, "I see you driving through here. Do you live here?" Her husband, not far behind, grabs her and proceeds to explain to her that I live literally around the corner from them. She then proceeds to ask me for my driver's license. As I laugh, I invite them over for drinks later. The husband thanks me as his wife continues to yell. 6 hours later, I walk to their house with a bottle of red wine and white wine, not knowing which they like. The husband answers the door. Shocked, he invited me in, only to have his wife say, "No." Embarrassed, he says he'll stop by later. Fast forward, he's one of my closest friends and she's still a raging bee. How is such a nice person married to such a horrible person? Old guy in his 70s walked up to me while at McDonald's and asked me, "Is that your camel parked out front?" Took a moment to register that he was being racist. I told him that there wasn't a camel in the parking lot and that he should see a doctor about his senile dementia. I'm not even Arab or Persian. I'm Puerto Rican. If you're going to be racist, at least make the effort to get the race right. The only thing worse than a racist is a lazy racist. My landlord thought one of my closest friends was some sort of hardcore Latino gangbanger who was selling me crack. He's an Asian IT professional who doesn't even drink. He was even coming over in his work clothes 99% of the time. We have a lot of jokes about that one. Not even the correct kind of racist here. WM played in a band with an African American guitarist. We wrote songs together and became great friends. One day we went to a convenience market and there was a help wanted sign on the door. "Watch this," he said, and went in the store to inquire about the job. 2 minutes later, he walked out and said with a sly grin, "The owner said they are no longer hiring. Now you go in." I went in the store and 5 minutes later came out with an application. "You see," he said, "you have no idea what it's like to be black." 30 years later, I still think about that day. When I, Hispanic, was a landscaper, my boss and I were hired to do lawn work in a really nice neighborhood. I was approached by an angry elderly white man and he asked me what I was doing and told me I don't belong here. My boss, who was also white, had to come and basically frick off and told him we were hired and allowed on the property we were on. I'm part native and have long hair. I live in Minneapolis. I was walking home one night and didn't have a hat, so I let my hair down while I walked home. I live on BDE Marcus Car, a nice lake in the city. A pair of cops pulled up on me, shined a very bright light into my eyes and asked me, "Why are you in this neighborhood?" I explained where I lived. "Because you don't mess with the cops here." They laughed as they drove away. MPD has plenty of racists. MPD has plenty of racists. Yeah, we are seeing that. Come to Nevada where our tribes are at least 1.5 class citizens. I always knew my dad was racist, but what really cemented the fact in my mind happened one night out at dinner in Myrtle Beach, SC. He just keeps looking over towards the bar with pure anger and hate on his face, but wouldn't say what the issue was. It wasn't until we got back in the car that he let us into what had him so mad. You know who the stupidest person on the planet is? A white woman with a N. He must have seen an interracial couple at the bar or something. He followed it up by telling my sister and I, "If you'll ever bring a black or Mexican person home, I will freaking disown you." We rode in silence for about 10 minutes when he added, "But you can bring an Oriental home. That's okay." I remember the first time I experienced racism. I'm Canadian but lived in England for a year when I was 8. I had a buddy from India. One time we wanted to play soccer at school over lunch with a group of guys. A boy said, "You can play because you're from Canada. He can't play because he has brown skin." I was so confused and didn't know why skin color made a difference. My friend was way better than me, so I thought they didn't want to play with someone so good. I asked him if all people with brown skin are really good at soccer. He just said no, let's go play somewhere else. It wasn't until later that I realized why they didn't want to play. A kid marching down the hall with a Confederate flag as a cape, throwing up the Hitler salute, and shouting white power. Staff did nothing and the kid got his butt beat in the parking lot after school. Went to school in the South. That's a good way to either get beat up or look like a dickus who thinks racism is dark and edgy humor. I have more. 1. In my class there are 3 Vietnamese guys. 2 of them I consider my friends. And our history teacher gets angry if they write their Vietnamese names instead of the Czech ones they use on a test since she does not know them. All the kids do remember and recognize them, but she teaches too many kids, and she read it horribly and said, which ching ching is this? 2. This gets done a lot by teachers, especially a math one. He just goes and screams at people usually. He is in butthole. And once he screamed at a girl, do you think I am speaking Chinese? Am I speaking Chinese? No, I am not. Boys here would tell me if I was they are Vietnamese. One knows one word in Chinese. That is very racist in my book to just know someone is Vietnamese but call them Chinese still. It might not be that racist, but for frick's sake they are teachers. Shouldn't they try to not be so racist? Then there are many other openly racist teachers that I do not even want to think about. They are racist in front of kids, basically insulting them 5 times in one sentence. And since 2 of them are my friends and like good people, it freaking makes me furious just for them. All the kids are accepting and just see nothing but another kid. But the goddamn teachers have to do this type of crap every day. Pre-COVID, when I was waiting on my train, this elderly couple came up and the old man made a big deal about not wanting to sit next to an Asian kid on the bench, but the only place left to sit, it was really busy. It was so freaking ridiculous. Basically telling the kid to go somewhere else, saying foreigners are thieves and smell disgusting and whatnot. Luckily some bystanders immediately told the man to pee off, so I didn't even have to intervene, but man, that made my blood boil. The kid looked so sad. When my oldest kid was a baby, we were grocery shopping and this old man comes up to us and tells me how nice it is to see a white baby because there are too many Mexicans in this town, right in front of a Latina clerk too. I managed to respond that her dad is Mexican and he hurried away. Same here. Husband is a 3rd generation Mexican. Me and our daughter are blonde hair, blue eyed. I get weird compliments from people like this when we are out. So weird. When I was in primary school, me and my friends, we were all from different backgrounds, were hanging out at break and some young kids, 4-5, we knew came by. One of them started hugging everyone but said to me, I won't hug you because you're black. Now this doesn't make sense because 1, I'm brown and 2, she hugged my other friend who was also brown. I don't think she understood what she was saying, but she came back and hugged me after my friends told her off. Okay, I don't know if this counts, but here we go. So there was one girl in my class that swore up and down she was so woke. For example, a white kid would say something about liking sushi and she would go off and tell them that it was cultural appropriation to eat sushi. Anyways, my class was pretty much all friends, so we were sitting in a circle asking questions about each other and one person asked, what's your native language and what's the language you want to learn? So everyone goes around and says a standard answer like my native language is English but I want to learn Japanese. So I'm the last person I answer and this is what it went like. Me. I'm black by the way, my native language is English but I'm learning Korean right now. Girl. But like what's your like native language? Girl. But like what language do people speak where you came from? Me. Huh. Girl. Come on, you know what I mean. Me. No I don't. Girl. You're black, wouldn't your family speak African? Me. What, my family is from America, I'm black, I'm not African. Girl. Yeah, okay. So the rest of the class try to convince her that I'm from America and I don't speak African. And not every black person is African and it's different. But she just wouldn't believe us and got so mad to the point where she walked away. For example, a white kid would say something about liking sushi and she would go off and tell them that it was cultural appropriation to eat sushi. I've ran into a few classmates like this. It gets really frustrating dealing with PPL who try to be overly woke to the point of ridiculousness. Maybe it's a combination of being white with a shaved head, or maybe it's just being white, but sometimes folk feel very comfortable spouting off racist crap with me in the room. A common one is whining about immigrants. On several occasions I've let people go on about their various stupid issues with the immigrants, until I point out I am one. Most of the time the whiner will awkwardly change the subject. One time a guy said, "Yeah, but you speak English." Somehow I don't think language was his problem. The most common trait I've seen among racist people is the assumption that most other people are as racist as them. Cops started harassing an older black guy for no obvious reason. Walked him down the block to the boundary with the next town. Told him not to come back. Cops left. He walked back home. 6th grade. This was mid-late 90s. Our teacher was telling us a story. She said this black woman without shoes came up my driveway and approached me. At first I was nervous because we don't have any black people in our neighborhood and I could tell she was homeless because she had a foul odor and she was black, and the black girl in class interrupted her and said, "Why does she have to be black for you to be nervous?" The teacher responded, "Because she was, and we don't have black people in our neighborhood. And skin color matters, Kelly." It shook me up. It is a big commuter area close to some major cities and military bases, so we had a diverse student body. The next week our principal came in to explain the teacher was let go because of her racist remarks. And we had a week where we learned about diversity and how discrimination plays a part in so many lives, how it can affect populations, and how you can be aware of it. I'm glad your school did that. When a realtor flagged me down and asked me, after showing a neighboring house to a black couple, if I would be okay with black neighbors. This happened within the last 5 years in a neighborhood popular for young professionals with children. It was infuriating, but I didn't have enough information to find someone to complain to. Realtor. Green tea 1985 looks kind of racist. I need to make sure my clients are safe living here. Does this count? After the recent protests in Ireland, some people have been a bit wary of the Irish and the rest of the UK, understandably, as long as it isn't taken too far. However, I was in a taxi and talking with the driver until he suddenly stopped and asked, "Are you Irish?" I replied, "Yay, I am." "Why?" He pulled over, racked up the bill, and told me to get out, in the middle of a busy road too. I was confused, until he said, "Don't want no IRA people in this cab. Get out of my cab and leave England. We don't need your violent protests and bombs here in our beautiful country." I decided not to start an argument. The cab was holding up traffic. Taxi drivers are usually polite. Don't know what was up with that one. Yeah, that counts. It sucks being considered terrorists. When I was 18 years old I had a friend, we'll call her T for short, who is an African American woman. Well, one thing led to another and she had nowhere to go for Thanksgiving and no family remotely close to our school. My immediate first thought was, and I quote, "Girl, you're like my sister. Coming to my Thanksgiving is going to see family." She was excited to come and my parents and siblings were 100,000% on board. Well, turns out my grandparents were hosting Thanksgiving this year. We hadn't actually seen them until we were late teens due to our mother having a major falling out with them, so this was our first holiday spent with them. We show up and everything seems okay, until T arrives about 5 minutes after me. She gets out the car, greets my mother and sister and begins to head inside when literally from 0 is greater than 100 my grandpa says, "So you brought her into my house." I will never forget the silence that fell. He went on some rant about race and bettering ourselves and stuff and how if that's what I'm dating I'm not his grandson. He then proceeds to say the only worse would be me being gay. Well, my friend is stunned. My sister is about to throw hands with our grandfather. Mom is followed close behind. I'm just in shock. When T started to cry I got angry and I proceeded to confront my grandparents. My responses include, "How could you of all people be hateful to another minority? Because get this, you are literally first generation from Mexico." Next I proceeded to explain how we can't tolerate hate for who we are. Told mom and dad I was leaving and they said they were coming. Grandmother was in tears and grandpa was saying how damned I was. To top it all off I decided to say frick it and also came out do the closet. I'm not dating this perfect black woman, because I'm dating a wonderful Asian man. TLDR. Learned grandpa was beyond racist and homophobic. He took it out on my friend who is an African American woman despite being a Latino person himself who gets treated poorly as a minority. Get told only worse than dating her would be being gay. So I tell him I'm not dating my perfect friend because I am dating a man. We've never spoke since and I couldn't be happier. I'm currently married as of the 4th of January 2021 and she is engaged to a wonderful mutual friend living our best lives. I know this wasn't in the above post, I just wanted to say it because I'm still so happy for Matlamayo. Whoa, that was dramatic and hectic, but as long as it has turned out alright it's all good and I'm happy for you. About 10 years ago a driver got out of his car to threaten to beat my freaking gook butt. This was in San Francisco on Judah and 41st. You could have said 10 hours ago and it wouldn't have surprised me. The Bay is out of pocket right now with the Asian racism. I'm a daycare teacher that works with 2-year-olds. The kids were sitting eating snack, and the woman who teaches the 1-year-old pops her head in. She had all of my kids the previous year, so she just wanted to say hi to them. No big deal. She starts marveling at how much the girls have grown and tells L, White, that her curls are so beautiful. She tells H, White, that her pigtails are adorable. She tells A, White, her hair is getting so long and pretty. Meanwhile, M, Black, is sitting there, munching on her goldfish, shaking her head and batting at her beads with her free hand. Her hair is braided, with beaded ends. The beads were pink, pearl, and silver sparkles. Top fashion for a 2-year-old. She's looking at the other teacher expectantly, making as much noise as possible with her beads. I say, Ms. E, M wants to show you her beads. She grunts and walks away. M's little face falls. Her little brow winkles in a deep thought. I tell M her hair is beautiful and her beads are super cool, and M grins then carries on eating. That B. This is a 2-year-old baby. I routinely hear stories from the black teachers that Ms. E treats them like trash, but this is a child. She's not even 3, and you're teaching her she's less than because of the color of her skin. How freaking awful can you be? Frick Ms. E. Those braids and cornrows with the beaded ends were the absolute crap when I was a kid. I'm in my 20s and I'm still tempted to wear my hair like that sometimes because I still love it. On multiple occasions people have yelled "N-er" at me from a passing car. I've also been called boy by a guy in a Confederate flag shirt. I'm middle age. That hollering it from a car is so lame. Has happened to me 3-4 times. I spend more time being puzzled than upset when it happens. Taunts from someone who wouldn't say boo to a goose if they were in slapping distance. Back in middle school, this girl thought that the reason why my family moved from NYC to Oklahoma, I moved back to NY a few years later, shortly after the 9/11 attacks, was because my family is from the Middle East and Muslim. My family is from Puerto Rico and we're Catholic, and we moved due to a divorce. She didn't believe me. A friend of a friend called my husband, who is Jamaican, the N-word over something trivial. My husband beat his butt. LOL, imagine being that blind that you confuse a family from Puerto Rico as one that's from the Middle East. It's definitely not as bad as some of the replies in this thread, but I was on a bus in London. I don't live there. We were on a coach trip to the Harry Potter tour thing. There's a lot of takeaways and newsagents in central London that are managed by POC from all backgrounds. There was an old couple behind me on the coach and I heard the woman just blurt out loud, "God, there's no English people here anymore, it's all PKs." Like, are you freaking kidding me? Everyone just fell silent and stared at her and her husband just stared at the floor in sheer embarrassment. In Boston, a slang term for a liquor store is packy because they sold packaged alcohol as opposed to places licensed to serve drinks. Living in another place, I said something about making a packy run and none of the Americans knew what I was talking about. The English guy figured out my intent but thought that I was going to get beer from a store run by people from Pakistan. A couple of years ago I had to go home after class to pick something up before I met up with my group for a group project. As I was on my way back to the bus stop, A random white guy stops me and starts listing off random addresses, demanding to know if I lived at any of them. I didn't, but even if I did I wouldn't have given him that info since he was a completely random person. He finished listing off the addresses and said, "Oh, well, some Chinese sucker was hacking my Wi-Fi. I guess you're not all bad." I'm sure that there was no hacking of his Wi-Fi at all. He probably just had a faulty router, but I guess blaming the Chinese was better than figuring that out himself. Also, I'm not sure what the correlation between the addresses were because half of them were houses on my street and white families lived in them. Another instance was in February of last year. I decided to share a study room with a couple of students, and for the most part they were pretty polite. As they were packing up to leave, we got to talking about the topic of COVID, which at the time was only really kicking the crap out of China and Italy. The guy who was there goes on to tell me that my people kind of deserved it, and then he starts questioning me about the actions of the Chinese government and pinning the blame on me as if I was personally responsible for their actions. I've never even set foot in China. Earlier he had used the N-word with the hard R, and his girlfriend or whoever the frick she was told him to stop. Well, during the exchange with me she joined in, saying yeah we're gonna beat you up for it. I was extremely uncomfortable, but they claimed it was a joke so I just had to play along. I asked if he was even Muslim, since one of the things he blamed me for was the Uyghur concentration camps, and he said my parents are, and I basically told him to get fo in a joking manner. I was pretty seriously wanting him to get the frick out of my face, but I purposely said it in a tone that they would interpret as a joke so that they didn't try to seriously argue with me. I was on Discord with a friend, and when I told her she got pretty upset on my behalf. When I was in the army stationed in Kentucky, me and 3 other guys from my unit went out one Friday night, late 1990s. Me, another white dude, a Hispanic guy, and a black guy. We got pretty lit and the Hispanic dude was the DD for the night. On our way back to post we had to drive through a notorious town. It had been a sunset town until the 60s I heard. This was at like 3 AM on a Saturday. As we were driving through town we got pulled over by the local yokel town cop. The driver was stone sober, but the cop asked us 3 drunk bastards in the back to get out. A cop says do something and you do it, so we did. He then proceeds to cuff our black buddy and place him under arrest. We are all like WTF, and the cop says he is arresting him for public drunkenness. He ignores our excuses that me and the other white guy are just as lit, but the cop tells us we are cool. We decide this cop ain't arresting our buddy but not us, so we stand in front of the doors on the cop car so he can't throw him in the car. The cop calls for backup, and when they arrive the new cops tell us if we don't get out of the way we will be arrested too, and we say cool. So we all 3 get cuffed and thrown into the cop cars and taken down to the station. The DD they let go and he says he got this. So the 3 of us, 1 black guy and 2 white, are in the station for about 30-45 minutes when we hear a commotion up front from where we are at in the drunk tank. There is a lot of yelling, and after about 5 minutes the original cop gets frog marched into the holding area by an MP and unlocks the cage door. MP tells us to go up front. At the front of the station is an MP officer arguing with the duty SGT from the local PD about our paperwork and documents they had confiscated from us. He finally gets all that stuff and takes outside where there are 5 MP vehicles waiting. They get us in the cars and drive us back to post where our DD is waiting for us. The officer gives us a card and asks us to come by the MP station that following Monday. What had happened was our DD drove straight to our unit and got the UD to call the MPs to come get us. It turned into a pretty big stink locally, but we were all shocked that that kind of bulls still happened even back then. TLDR. Racist cop tried to only arrest the 1 black guy in our group, but we wouldn't let him and caused a stink. Good on you for standing up for your buddy. I was visiting my GF, and she was working in the middle of nowhere, Georgia, as it was the first law firm that offered her a job. We went to this place called Lane Southern Orchard, and I bought some stuff to take back home with me. There was this sweet older cashier lady who was super nice to me. At the end of the interaction, I said, "Thank you, mom." As I was walking away, this old Caucasian lady said to me, "You know, you don't have to be nice to them." I told her that it doesn't hurt to be nice to retail people, and she replied, "You know, there are certain people that you don't have to be nice to." It took a minute before I realized what she was getting at, and before I could stop myself I blurted out, with a crap-eating grin on my face, "Oh, Are you saying I don't have to be nice to minorities? She stormed away muttering under her breath, and my GF and I just laughed. A close second is the U-Haul rental place we went while we were in Savannah. There were 20 spots in the lot, and they were all lettered AAA, BBB, CCC, etc. Also that they could write KKK on a spot in their driveway. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.